Hello, everybody. Catchy13 here with Catchy Gaming, and while I write a really long script for a really long video, it's just something I'm going to try out, and because of the nature of the game, I wanted to make a short little video, and one of the things I like to do is watch law tubers, sort of. More like I like to watch sovereign citizens make themselves look like idiots, in court or on the side of the road before they get their windows smashed. But every now and then you also get an interesting case that's just absolutely insane. And one thing I usually did is I look up some cases because they take time to finish. And one that kind of went under my radar because I was keeping track of it and just sort of forgot about was that one time GameFi sued Nintendo. And now I know Nintendo isn't particularly popular with some people, while still being popular with others, depending on your point of view, along with their extreme litigiousness, having maybe made some lawsuits. Yes, technically legal, probably not in their best interest in terms of their reputation, though. But this one, I think Nintendo was actually in the right. So back in 2017, when the Switch launched, fast forward to August of that year, GameVice, a company that sells peripherals for your phones and your tablets to be played like it's a normal controller, filed a lawsuit against Nintendo claiming patent infringements on 3 different patents. It might have been 2 at that time, but we'll get into that later. But it mainly involved this thing right here, the WikiPad. On top of that lawsuit they filed, they also tried to get an injunction on Nintendo Switches being shipped to the US, which was denied. Quite obvious considering that there was never really an ebb in their shipping, just a shortage from people wanting to play video games during the lockdowns. Now, anybody with eyes and a brain can tell that looks nothing like the Nintendo Switch. And I don't know what the other devices look like in terms of their appearance, in terms of those patents. But I'm guessing a lot of people who didn't know were like, these two are not the same as a Nintendo Switch. Not even in appearance. And we'll get to that later. After GameVice's injunction to have Switches stop being shipped to the US was denied, they made a complaint with the ITC, or the International Trade Commission, to investigate Nintendo on patent infringement. Meanwhile, their lawsuit was dismissed by GameVice themselves, but fast forward to March of 2019, they refiled their lawsuit against Nintendo. Unfortunately, this lawsuit is extremely drawn out and took a very, very long time. We didn't see any movement until October of 2019 when the ITC found that Nintendo did not infringe on GameVice's patents. GameVice didn't particularly care for this opinion and filed an appeal, which went nowhere. After the ITC investigation ended, Nintendo filed a Rule 11 sanctions against GameVice's lawyers and GameVice itself, basically in a nutshell saying that the filings and the continuation of the lawsuit would be in bad faith and thus violating the federal rules of civil procedure. In May of 2022, they received a response with the judge denying Nintendo's request for Rule 11 sanctions, but told GameVice because of that conclusion of the ITC, they faced a very large uphill battle proving that their patents were infringed on by Nintendo. Now you may ask why all this is going on for so long. They sued in California, and California is absolutely notorious for making some really dumb decisions. As an example, let's stick to gaming. When Lindsay Lohan sued Rockstar Games for a woman in a bikini in between loading screens and claimed that it was based off of her, even though Rockstar proved with receipts, quite literally actually showing receipts, contracts, and images of the person they base the image off of, yet they still allowed the lawsuit to continue. I mean, it eventually just went away and it's a video all on its own. But it's an example of something that's fairly common out of the California courts. There are things happening in between points. A lot of them are just like motions for discovery and stuff like that. They're very boring. There's no drama or anything like that involved in any shape or form. It's actually a pretty boring lawsuit. And unfortunately, I don't have all the filings. I only have what I can find via Google Scholar. I did have a website that had all the filings, and then they put them all behind a paywall after a couple of months. So that sucks. I mean, not that anyone would really want to see them. They're exceptionally boring, especially the really long version of the final order. Speaking of which, in March of 2023, a order granting in part and denying in part a motion for summary judgment in Nintendo's favor was issued. It's a whole bunch of things that the lawyers have to do. It's exceptionally boring. But then fast forward to November 2023, a final amended judgment was issued. So the court found in favor of Nintendo against Game Vice as to all claims for relief pleaded by Game Vice against Nintendo. Also, Nintendo had a countersuit in which Game Vice had to pay the attorney fees for Nintendo of America. With that, the case was dismissed without prejudice. I kind of think it should be dismissed with prejudice, but that's just me. And unfortunately, this is like a very abbreviated judgment. The full one that I don't have access to anymore went into great detail, basically saying in a nutshell, a lot of the things that they patented were so generic and common that they could not be patented. I mean, you can see in the amended judgment here, they say that they can't even show that the Switch has the confinement structure or the apertures that secure the tablet into the device or the controller, which was one of the reasons why the ITC did not find that Nintendo infringed on any of their patents, because they have brains and eyeballs. Even stating that it required a tablet to be inserted into the controller just to function, while the Nintendo controllers slid off of the tablet portion of the Switch and maintained functionality afterwards. To be honest, I think this whole entire thing was just dumb and took way too long, as American court systems have a tendency to do. Not nearly as long as other countries, but this felt like it shouldn't have taken this long. It's not the dumbest lawsuit I've seen against Nintendo. There's actually a couple out there that I can point to. First one, made by the Game Historian, is about a 9-year-old boy, actually his father, suing Nintendo over a baseball NES game. With that one coming in second, in my opinion, to one of the dumbest lawsuits against Nintendo. This one is in third place in my mind, made by Thomas Game Dogs, where a music company tried to sue Nintendo over a song when Nintendo bought the license for the song. Lastly, this one, I can't remember the creator that I initially found this out with. I wish I could credit him, but I don't, so we're just going with a Google search image. This last one is the dumbest one. It's a lawsuit against Nintendo by Uri Geller, who was demonstrated to be a fraud by James Randi, who tried to sue James Randi, so I guess that's just a par for the course for the guy. But anyways, he tried to sue Nintendo, claiming patent infringement or image infringement to the Pokemon Kadabra, which had the Japanese name of Younger. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but whatever. But, you know, Kadabra with the spoons, and that's what Uri Geller was known for bending spoons. Just not with his mind. Yes, that went on for 20 years before Uri Geller gave up. I'm not entirely sure why it was allowed to survive that long, but it did. So, with the Switch 2 coming out in a month at this point, I kind of had to wonder if they might take another bite of the apple, as lawyers like to say. I'm doubting it. I can't imagine paying Nintendo of America's legal fees was cheap, by any means, and I don't even see any appeals for this in any shape or form. But again, I'm limited to Google Scholar, and any appeals for having to pay those fees might be somewhere else. I don't know. We'll wait and see. Most likely not, since they already lost what seems to be pretty soundly in terms of the whole entire lawsuit. Anyways, if you made it this far, thanks for watching. Have a good one.